Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 15 in our incredible new tutorial series where you are learning artificial intelligence on the Jetson Nano. What I need you to do is pour yourself a nice big mug of iced coffee, and I need you to get out your Jetson Nano gear. What? You don't have your gear yet? Look in the description down below and I have links to the hardware that I am using. It is actually pretty useful in something like this if we are working on identical hardware. Also, want to take a second and give a shout out to you guys that are helping me out over on Patreon. It's a huge encouragement for me. If you guys aren't helping yet, think about looking in the description down below. There's a link to my Patreon account. You can go over, check it out. Think about hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and learn something good today. And I'm actually kind of excited about today's lesson. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be learning how to draw shapes on our videos in OpenCV. And this is kind of like starting to get to the really cool part of OpenCV and artificial intelligence. And if you think about what we've done so far, what we're really doing is we're interacting with the camera on the Jetson Nano, and we can go out and we can grab a frame with a line of Python code, and then we can show that frame on the screen with a line of Python code. So we can grab a frame and we can show a frame. The neat thing is we can put commands in between those two, so we can sit between the read and the show, and we can do all types of interesting things. So one of the interesting things that we can do is we can manipulate the image by drawing on it. Well, now, like, imagine if you were looking outside with a camera and you had a thermometer attached. What you could do is superimpose on the picture, you could superimpose the actual temperature that you're reading. So you could grab the camera frame, you could measure temperature, you could put the temperature, display it in the window, and then you could show that frame that you put that on. So you can put text on it, you can put all types of different things on there, and that really opens up some pretty exciting capabilities. And so we're going to learn the basics today of drawing these images. So I will need to get out of your way, and then we will need to open up our Visual Code Studio. And then remember, we are working in this folder called OpenCV. And so I'm going to click on the OpenCV folder, and then I want a new file. And the new file that should go in OpenCV, I'm going to call, we'll still call it like our CV, let's see, we'll call it OpenCV, and then we will call it 4, OpenCV 4, and then I will call it drawing. I should have called that last one save read. I should have named it better, but we'll get back in the sequence here. So OpenCV4 drawing.py. Okay, boom, now we're in the empty program. Now remember, we want to start with that core program that runs the camera, so we don't have to develop that every time. You should have it in, if you've been following along, you should have it in OpenCV1, and you should just be able to go and get that code and come over and paste it here to start with that. But if you are starting in the middle and haven't been following along, you can come to our most excellent TopTechBoy.com, www.toptechboy.com, and then if you will search on, click on the little search icon there, okay, and type in Jetson Nano camera. You will be brought to this page. You can click on the title, and then you can come down and you can get the code here. You click on the two little pages and it selects it all. Right mouse click and then copy. Get your browser out of the way and then come back over here, right mouse click and paste. And now you should be ready to run the camera. Now I remind you that if you are using the Raspberry Pi camera, which we are, I need you to uncomment out that line that says cam set, and then the next line that says cam and CV2.video capture cam set. So that will launch the Raspberry Pi camera. Or if you are using the webcam, instead of uncommenting those two things out, you would uncomment out this one, the CV2.video capture 0. That should work with most webcams. If for some reason 0 doesn't work, try 1. Okay, put a 1 there instead of a 0, and you should be able to fire open that webcam. But we are using the Raspberry Pi camera, so we will do it this way. Okay, now let's just do a quick test. I'm going to do one other thing. I like to have my windows organized, so I'm going to add the most excellent command, cv2.move window. Okay, move window. And then I need to say which window. Well, I think here we are calling it Nano Cam. And so I say that, and then I will come over comma and the coordinates of where I want to move it. And I want to move it to 0, 0. And I think that will work. That looks like the little helper hints. It's just sometimes they want a coordinate, like they want a tuple, like open parentheses x, y. But in this case, I think they just want it as two parameters, x and y, if I look at that right. So now let's right mouse click. Let's run Python file in terminal. Boom, look at that. It is working. And it's always good to see it working even though you expect it to work. I always like to try things out before I go too far. So we'll come over here, Q to quit out of that. Okay, now there are just some kind of neat things that you can do between the read and the show. Okay, and so I'm going to come in and let's start doing some things here. Let's start by drawing a box. Okay, so I'm going to say frame. So what did we read? We read into frame, and so our image is in frame, so I got to tell it is frame is what I am going to be modifying. And then I'm going to say that's equal to cv2.rectangle. So I'm going to put a rectangle on frame, and then open parentheses for the parameters. Kind of strange, but you tell it what frame you're working with, frame. Well, it's a little bit odd that didn't we already tell it frame? But frame is equal to CV2, kind of think about adding a rectangle to what? To frame. And then we've got to give it the position of the upper left corner of the rectangle and the lower right corner of the rectangle. So we are going to say 140. And then let's say 100. So the first is x, so you are over by 100, or you're over by 140, and then you're down by 100. So it's x and y. Over by 140, down by 100, and that's from the upper left corner of the screen. So that is where your rectangle is going to start. And again, you see you're putting it in as a tuple, an open parenthesis, x, y, and then close parentheses. And then you got to get that other corner in there, and that is going to be, I need to make sure that I try to be so mindful that you can see what I'm typing. Okay, the next one is going to be that bottom corner. So if we started in x at 140, well, let's go on over to 180. So it would be 40 wide, and then let's make it a square. Let's make it 40 further down, so that would be 140. Okay, so that should be a square, not a rectangle. Okay, and now we got to give it the color. Well, the color, again, open parentheses. And remember, this is something goofy about OpenCV. Normally you think about red, green, blue, RGB. Well, they are in BGR, backwards. So the first is blue. I'm going to make that 255. And the second one is green. I'll make that 0. And then the third one is red. I'll make that 0. And then the final thing is the line width, kind of like how heavy is the line. We'll make it a 4. Okay, so now that should put a rectangle. So we read a frame, and then we change the frame, and then we show a frame. And since it's in the loop, every single frame going by it should do. So we should see that square sit there. So let's run Python file in terminal. Boom. There's our rectangle sitting right where we told it to. Kind of neat, huh? Let's try a couple of different things real quick here. What if we wanted it to be green? Well, we would make this 255. We would make this one 0. Right mouse click, run Python file in terminal. Okay, we got a green one. It's working. All right, let's make it bigger. Let's start at 140 and let's make it 60. Let's go to 200. So we're going to make it a rectangle this time. So that's going to be about 60, and then let's make the height 30. So we would go from 100 to 130. Okay, and let's make it heavier. Let's make it like 7. Okay, right mouse click, run Python file in terminal. Boom. Okay, we got a bigger rectangle and we got a heavier rectangle. It's still kind of small. I'm going to go out to like 250 and then I'm going to go to like 170. All right. You can play around with these numbers. And what happened? Did I have my frame? Yeah, I'm hiding back there. I forgot to quit, so I'll quit out of it and it should pop back up. Okay, there it is. So I got a bigger rectangle and I can move it to wherever I want and I can make it whatever color I want. So I can basically draw whatever type of rectangle that I want. So that is pretty slick, I do think. I want to move it over forward further. So I'm going to say like, I'm going to go from 280 in X2. Well, let's see, I'm 640. I'm going to go like 340. I'm going to go over a ways, and then I will make it like 390. Let's try that. Or I'll make it 400, say. I just want to move it over a little bit. Okay. So now I will quit this. All right. And let me show you in case you weren't able to see if I did not have that line here. So I made it 340, 100 to 400, 170. And so let's look and see how that works. Okay, so that's good. All right, well, what else could we do? You can imagine that if we can draw a rectangle, we could also do a frame is equal to CV2 dot circle, right? Circle. Is it going to recognize that? I sure hope it recognizes circle. There it is. Scared me for a second. Circle. And then same thing. Where are we going to put it on? Frame. And then what we need to do is this time you can imagine you want the center of the circle. And so let's do the center kind of about in the middle of the screen, which would be 640 would be 320 would be the middle, and then 640 by 480 would put 240 in the middle. Okay, so we're kind of trying to get it in the middle of the screen, 240. And then what do I want here? You could imagine you want a radius, and so let's make it like a radius of 50. And then again, you're going to want the color. Okay. Let me make sure this is, you want the color. Let's make it red. We haven't made anything red yet. 0, 0, 255. That's what I should have made clear, that full strength it's 255, 0 is no strength. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want the width again, and let's make it like 5. Okay, the kind of how heavy the line is. And so a line width of 5, and it should be red, and it should have a radius of 50. And now let's come up here and run Python file in terminal. Okay, look at that. Boom. We got a circle and we got a rectangle. I could look red in the circle, right? Now you can imagine why you want to do this, because maybe I want that circle to track me or track something. So you can't do that if you don't know how to draw the shapes. And so that's what we're learning how to do. Also, you see that we had 2 different drawing commands, so we're getting 2 different pictures, okay? Let me show you one thing that's also kind of nice. Like if you put the width of the line width to -1, we get a solid. So if you want to make a solid object, what you can do is you can put a line width of -1. Kind of a neat thing to know, huh? Okay, also, what if we wanted to kind of mix colors? And so this is blue, green, red. Well, what if we wanted aqua? Well, we would turn blue to 255, we would turn green to 255, and we would turn red to 0, and that should give us an aqua circle. Run Python file in terminal. Boom, it's kind of an aqua. It's a little more of a cyan, I think, than an aqua, but that's okay. We're gonna quit. All right. Ooh, that was bad, but it still kind of worked. Let's try that again. I had an extra 0 in there. Yeah, it's the same color. Okay, what if we put blue, green, red? What if we put blue and red? That should be like magenta, don't you think? All right, let's try that. Yeah, boom, magenta. Okay, and you guys also know you don't have to do 0 and 255. You can mix these things, and you can mix all three of them, so you can come up with any color that you want by mixing those three colors, and so that's kind of neat. Okay, let's see what else we can do. We've done circles. Now what we can also do is we can put text on there. And so what we would do there is say frame, and then we would say CV2. Well, really, before we give the frame command, before we give the put text command, we need to define the font. And so I'm just going to call it FNT. And so I'm going to say FNT is going to be CV2 dot, and then uppercase FONT. And then it should guess. Okay, it guesses a lot of different ones that you could use. And so now you could come down and you could just choose a font. Let's try font Hershey Duplex. Okay, and so now I have defined my font, and now I got to do my put text. So I'll say frame is equal to CV2 dot, command is put text. Okay, put text. And then first of all, kind of like the earlier ones, where you're going to put it, you're going to put it on frame, even though you already told it that. And then you're going to put a string, which I'll say is my first text. Okay. And now what you want to do is another comma, and you have to tell it where you want it. Okay, well, let's go like, let's put it over at 300, comma 300, and that's kind of where you put it, so you only need one. You know, it's not like the rectangle. You don't need two different coordinates. You're just going to use one coordinate. That is, this pop-up box is becoming a little bit annoying to me. Okay, and then we want like a kind of a weight, and so we're going to give it a 1, and then we are going to give it a 255. Oops, we're going to give it a 255 comma 0 comma, let's go 150 just to kind of mix it up a little bit. That should be an interesting color. And then comma, and then let's see what it wants now. Okay, I gave the color, and now it wants the thickness. Okay, it wants the thickness of it, and so I'll give it a thickness of 2. And so this is the thickness of the letters, and this is the kind of size of the letters. All right, and so let's run this and see what it looks like. Did I mess up, or maybe I forgot to kill the program before? No. Let's see. Do I have an error? This is most peculiar. I don't see an error. I do not see an error. Yes. Must be real number, not a tuple. So somewhere I put a tuple where I wasn't supposed to. Most perplexing. Okay, let me look at this. So I've got CV2.putText, and then I've got frame, and then I've got my first text in single quotes, and then I have a comma. I have a 300. Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot to tell it the font. Remember, we set that font up, and that goes right here, FNT, comma. Okay, so you see, in this earlier line, we defined what font was, and then we have to feed it, and we feed it right after the position. This should work this time. Run Python and file. Ah, boom! Look at that. Okay, so you see, I can put text, I can put circles, I can put rectangles, and you can imagine that I can put lines. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's try a couple more here as we're doing this. So we will come down and we will do another on frame, and we will do another CV2 dot. And now what we want to do is we want a line. Okay, we want a line. And the line is a lot like the rectangle. You put the starting point and the ending point of the line. And so what we're going to do is on line we're going to say frame, and then we are going to say, let's go from 10, comma 10, and then we want to comma, and then where do we want to go to? Well, let's go almost all the way across. So let's say 630 across, and 630 by 480, right? And so then let's go 470 like that. Okay, so we go 1010 is the starting point of the line, 630, 470 is the next point, and then we need to give it a color. And so I'm just going to go 0, 0, 0. If I'm thinking right, that should be black. And then we want to give it how heavy it is. I'll give it a weight of 4. Okay. And so now let's run that in terminal. Boom. We got a line that goes almost corner to corner, which is exactly what we were expecting. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and on this text, I want to make sure that I thought about this right. I think 1 is the height. And so if we go 2 here, that should be a bigger font. Let's go run Python file in terminal. Yeah, you see it's like way bigger. I wonder if you can do intermediate values, if you can do like a 1.5. I'm not sure if you can do floats, but let's try it. Run Python file in terminal. Yeah, you can. Okay, so you can fine tune the size of that. And then also let's look at the heaviness of it. Let's like go to 6, and that's kind of like how thick it is, how thick the lines are, how thick the letters are. Okay, yeah, you see, in fact, that's awkwardly thick, I would say. All right, so let's quit that. Let's come back here and make this a little more normal, like a 3, and that should be good. Okay, so we have drawn a lot of different things, and so next up we're going to do a frame, and you can also do arrows. So we can do CV2 dot arrowed line. And so we can make arrows, and so we can go from this time. Let's go from 10 over, and we are going to be all the way down to like 470, and that's where the arrow is going to start. And then let's go from there. Let's go all the way across to 630. And then let's go to 10. And so that should be a diagonal going up. And then similar to the line, what we need to do is we need to put in a color. All right. And I am going to go, let's go 255, 255, 255, which should be white if I'm thinking about it right. And then a width, or kind of like how heavy the arrow is, let's put a 3. All right. Let's right mouse click, run Python file in terminal. Oh, we got an error. What did I do wrong? Oh, let's see. Oh, I did all kinds of errors here. That on arrowed line, I got to tell it frame. Were you guys yelling at me? Frame, comma, and then open those parentheses. All right, run Python file in terminal. Okay, there it is. Boom. Look at that. You see we got a big arrow. We got a line. We got a box. We got all kinds of things going on here. So now I'm going to quit. And that arrow was a little bit enormous, and so I'm going to make that like a 1. Okay, let's try that. Run Python file in terminal. Okay, that looks good. So you can see there's a lot of different things that we can do there. Okay, those are the main things, because what's going to become exciting is when you start animating it and when you start moving the thing around. And so I think I'm going to give you some homework from next week, because I've given you the tools that you need in order to do the homework. So I'm going to give you the homework. And what your homework is like, okay, you know how to draw a rectangle. So let me just get rid of all this nonsense except the rectangle. Okay. Get rid of all the nonsense except for the rectangle. Okay, and then on the rectangle, I'm going to make it, I think I'll make it bigger, like I'll make it 450, and then I'll make it 190, and then it was getting kind of awkwardly thick, so I'm going to make it like a 3. Now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it solid, so I'm going to make it -1. I'm going to make it solid. Okay. Now I'm going to say run Python file in terminal. Okay, there. You see, got a solid rectangle. I could hide behind it. All right. So you see, I got a solid rectangle. Now this is what your assignment is for next week, and I'll show you what I want it to do. Okay. I'll show you what I want it to do. I've got a program written here, and so let's run that program. Boom. Look at that. Bouncing off the bottom. Okay, so you see, live video, and as we're sitting here chatting, that box bounced off the right edge, bounced off the top. It's going to bounce off the bottom, and also notice it doesn't run off the screen. When the edge hits the edge, it bounces. Bounce, and then we're going to do the left. Okay, and what I want you to see is you have all the information that you need in order to do this. There isn't a cv2.bouncybox command. There isn't one. You have to write it. I've shown you how to do a rectangle, and you've got to remember that this is dynamic. Like when we were doing it before, it looked like that box was sitting still, but it was being generated every time. It's just every time it was being generated with the same coordinates. Hint. Coordinates need to change to make this work. And this is kind of a classic program, and you guys, to be programmers, you got to start thinking about some of these classic things, and a body moving around is one of the kind of classic things. So I hope that you will really try, and I hope that you will figure out how to do this. So I'm going to watch it just for another second or two. I want to make sure want to make sure it's bouncing off the top properly. Oh yeah, it hit it perfectly. So that looks really good. Okay guys, I have had a lot of fun with this lesson. This has been a fun one for me to do. Okay, and I hope that you followed along with me. I hope that you will do the homework. You guys, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Really helps me build the channel. The more thumbs up I get, the more times my videos are suggested. And so I hope you guys will give me a thumbs up. Also, think about subscribing to the channel. Think about sharing this with other people. Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.